mind. Our first set of series targeted for family-run executive directors and family leaders. NASDAQ wishes to support all the family support workforce. In order to accomplish this, we'll be hosting additional sets of series for other family support workforce staff as we continue along. That means we're going to get to policymakers, we're going to get to family peer specialists, we're going to touch everybody that touches and supports families. Office Hours was developed as an outcome of the listening sessions we conducted last winter. They'll be held the fourth Thursday of the month at this time. Before we start our interactive conversation today, I would like to go over a few housekeeping items. Today's conversation is being recorded. The recording and any additional resources will be uploaded to our NASDAQ website under the Events tab. If you have any technical difficulties, please type your comment and someone will be able to assist you. Please also type your questions for the presenter in the chat box. We'll be watching the chat during the entire presentation. Our goal for Office Hours is to encourage a conversation between our guest presenters and all those in attendance. We encourage you to ask questions that will assist you in your daily work. We will unmute participants after the presentation portion is complete. If you can use the raise your hand button, that'd be helpful. NASDAQ hopes you leave this event invigorated and with new ideas to help you do your own work. We'll be following up with notes from this session. We ask that you take time to complete a short feedback survey using the link provided at the end of this presentation. The survey will help us continuously improve our events, and it also fulfills our SAMHSA funding obligation to provide them with important data required by our contract. Please note, all information will be confidential and we will respect your privacy. We do not offer CEU credits for our events, but you will receive a certificate of attendance after the survey is completed. I would now like to thank SAMHSA for allowing us to share this information with you today, and thank you for joining us. At this time, I would like to introduce the Senior Director of Marketing Services, Ian Gardner. He will tell you more about himself and his work as the event begins. And again, we encourage you to ask questions. This is what it's for. We want you to learn. We want you to take home something. So ask them in the chat as the presentation is going on, and then take off your mic if you'd like and ask them in person too. Enjoy. Ian?
Excellent. Thank you, Gail. And hello, everybody. Thank you for hopping on. I'm very excited to be gathered with you all. And like Gail said, please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation. This is very much meant to be for you and to get all of your burning digital marketing questions answered. So feel free to put them in the chat or just interrupt me. I really enjoy that kind of part of it. So jumping right in, I'll kind of give you a quick sense of the agenda for today. So I've got about 4 or 5 kind of intro slides. I'll tell you a little bit about myself and my agency, Media Cause, and then also some kind of preliminary slides, and then we'll get into what I've kind of put together, which are the 5 marketing strategies to get your organization known, kind of the top 5 marketing strategies. So without further ado, let me go into these. So a little bit about myself. So I have over 20 years of digital marketing experience. A little bit over 2/3 of that is in the nonprofit sector. And just on a more personal level, I'm an amateur painter, love playing soccer and hiking, and I'm a soon-to-be father any day now. Actually, I had to warn Gail and Lachelle before this that I might have to bail if something, if my wife goes into labor anytime soon, but luckily I don't think it's going to happen today. So, but that is on the horizon for myself. Thank you, Millie. So a little bit about Media Cause, the agency I work for. So we are a full service digital agency. We specialize in nonprofit marketing and fundraising. We work with clients and partners of all shapes and sizes, big and small, and we work in all different issue areas from health to environmental to social enterprise. Before we dive into those 5 marketing strategies I mentioned, there are kind of really 2 big components to have in place before your organization wants to do any type of marketing to drive people to your cause. And the first is that marketing plan. I'm sure you've heard of it before. You may have it on your to-do list, or maybe you have one in place to kind of guide and direct your marketing strategies. But it really is the guideposts and the blueprint to follow before trying any kind of marketing strategies that we'll go over. And I'll just quickly go through this just to give you a general sense for how we think about a marketing plan when we're working with an organization. Essentially, and I'm going to kind of just throw these all up, and you'll get this slide deck afterwards, so you don't have to take all these notes down right this second. But these are essentially the 7 or 8 components of a marketing plan that we look to when we're trying to develop that roadmap. Of course, you have your executive summary, it's the vision, your SMART goals. As nonprofits, I'm sure you've heard that acronym before, but it's very much the emphasis on the M in that goal, it being measurable. We want to really try to lay out goals that are very numbers based and things that you can measure at the end of the day. If you can do market and competitive research, it's great to just get a sense of the landscape. And then I highlighted here the target audiences because it's just so important, and everything trickles down from there. So really understanding who that target audience is, getting down to the demographics, their interests, where they live, how old they are, where they get their information, their news. All of that information should be in the marketing plan and laid out as detailed as possible, because that will inform the next parts of your marketing plan, the marketing channels, what channels you really want to focus on, depending on where your target audience is, how much budget you should put towards those channels. And the budget can also be all the soft costs as well, or your salaries for your employees, everything there. And then of course the timeline. That's kind of just a quick overview of what we do when we're putting together a marketing plan for an organization. And the second biggest component really before driving any kind of marketing to your organization is to have that website, a marketing ready website already locked in. And so these are a few components that we look to before starting any type of marketing. You can see here, this is an organization that we've worked with for over 7 years now. They're based in Texas. They provide depression and bipolar support group services for their clients. And they have a really solid website. Their CTAs, their calls to action are front and center. So when somebody lands on the website, they know exactly where to go, and they can very easily get engaged with their organization. They've got a very well populated events calendar, so it looks like there's a lot of different programs and activities to plug into. They've got actually a quiz on their site that, well, I'll talk about it in a little bit as well, but it's really just a good feature for any of their website traffic coming across them to start that engagement. And then they've got the email pop-up on their website as well. And I know, most people are not huge fans of email pop-ups, but they do work very well for building that email supporter list and building your cause list. And when they're done well and timed at the right time, when somebody's on your website and they deliver valuable information, they can actually be very welcomed by people when they're visiting your site. So those are just a few components for what we look for first and foremost before starting any types of marketing with our partners. So going on to the strategies. So like I said, I put together kind of five of the top strategies for all organizations to do to market your nonprofit. And the number one strategy in our book really is the Google Ad Grant. Hopefully a lot of you have heard of it. Hopefully a lot of you even have your ad grant as well. I'll go into what it is. So as you can see on the right-hand side, when you type in a search into Google, I typed in substance abuse support groups. All of the ads that are there marked in green could be from an ad grant, or they could be from a paid Google ad. You can't really tell on the front end, but it's very likely that these are coming from an ad grant. And Google is part of this program. Google gives you $10,000 in advertising dollars every single month for a lifetime. So it's $120,000 a year in ad budget. It's a lot of money to use for your mission to market your programs. So why we marketers love it, like I said, it's a lot of ad dollars. It's also on a platform where it's something that, it's different from other ad platforms because there's something called search intent. And that just means that people are looking for you, looking for your programs, and you are serving up an ad that is very relevant to their search versus, if you're running an ad on social media, you're kind of interrupting their feed. And it's not always as compelling because you're interrupting their experience. But here, people are looking, they're searching for you. So there's a lot of, you get a lot of very high quality traffic to your site from there. And it puts you at the top of a Google search, so which can be difficult to do organically, without an ad. You can see the blue arrow down there, that's the organic results all the way below those 3 ads. And so to get to that first spot, the SAMHSA spot, is difficult, takes some time and a lot of different content, and we can kind of get into that in the next couple of slides. But the Google Ad Grant will put you at the top of a Google search if you get your ad up there. So yeah, Gail is asking the group, does everyone have the Google Ad Grant? If you can chime in the chat or open up your mics and let us know if you have one, if it's been a good experience, if you've been able to use the tool to drive traffic. Maybe people are shy, maybe people don't have the ad grant. I can continue. All right, Lisa, thanks. So yes, thank you, Joy. So definitely look into it. I mean, you just literally do a Google search for Google Ad Grants, and I'm sure it'll pop up on the first listing. But it's very easy to apply. All you have to do is be a 501c3 registered nonprofit, and the form is maybe like 4 or 5 fields long, and it just asks what your mission is, what you hope to accomplish with it, and ask for your URL for your website, and then they get back to you within a couple of weeks and can provide that grant to you. So it's very easy to apply. It's not so easy to manage the ad grants just because the Google ad platform is a little bit more complicated. It takes a little bit getting used to, and how to set up the ads and do everything to really utilize that full $10,000. But that's where we come into play, and we help organizations navigate Google Ads and utilize that full $10,000 a month. And so the other part of why marketers like it is it's cost per click, and cost per click is just a nice format because you don't pay for anything. You don't pay for showing the ad, you only pay when somebody clicks on it to get to your site. So again, it's a very efficient way to use ad dollars. And so how marketers can use it, if you are using an ad grant and you're fully taking advantage of all $10,000 each month, that can drive anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 visitors to your website every single month. And if you have those kind of email capture tactics on your website, like what I showed you on the first couple slides, where there's an email pop-up, there's a quiz or some kind of interactive or something where you're gathering people's information, you can have hundreds of people signing up, or if they're signing up for a support group, that would be considered a sign up. So hundreds coming your way every month from the ad grant. So the second biggest marketing strategy to use to really drive people to your site and to your programs is paid media. And this is really just a marketing term for those social media ads that are running on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and other channels. Excuse me. You can see an example here on the right from the same organization, Remind. And we created these ads for this partner and run them. on a monthly basis, and it drives a lot of signups for their organization. Why marketers like it? The social media ads are pretty inexpensive, especially on Facebook and Instagram. It's literally, pennies to get seen by thousands of people, and very targeted audiences as well. And it ensures that your ads are actually seen, versus if you're just posting on social media to your audience, your followers. It's as I'm sure you're probably aware at this point, it's not guaranteed that your followers will see your posts. And in fact, that's kind of from my cynical side point of view, it's kind of what Facebook was doing from the very beginning. They wanted you to build big followings, and then eventually they're going to start to charge you to reach those followers. But it's the kind of the name of the game at this point. So you really, if you have some posts and content that you want to be seen, you need to pay at least a little bit of ad dollars to get them seen. And it doesn't really cost much, like I said. So even just a $500 ad budget can go a long way on something like Facebook and Instagram. On other platforms, that $500 doesn't really go that far. But Facebook can do a lot with 500. Oops, sorry. And so I really encourage everybody to, if you can, set aside 500 at least each month for that ad budget. And just boost some of your posts, do what you can to create new ads to reach your audiences. It will have some good payback. So number 3 for the top marketing strategies for your organization is just good old-fashioned content creation. So this is anything that's just of high value for your target audience. It can be blog posts, it can be resource downloads, videos, you name it, and you want to be building as much content as possible on your site for your audiences. And not only does it just delight your audience, it gives them something to really learn from and read about, but it's inexpensive to produce, and it really helps with what's called SEO. You've probably heard kind of the buzzword, search engine optimization, and that's going to be one of the 5 that it's coming up, to give you more information about that. But essentially, Google loves new content being added to websites. If their algorithm sees that you're adding new blogs and new posts, they'll send more website traffic your way as a result. So and kind of related to how your target audience will appreciate that content, it really creates that long-term and trusted relationship as well. They know they can go to for the best resources, the best information for their needs. The fourth marketing strategy that you should be doing, if you can, for your programs and mission, are virtual events. Obviously, in this day and age as well, these are much more popular. It's any event that somebody can join when they're on their computer or phone. It meets people where they are. It allows people to really join in any given scenario. It's obviously less expensive to coordinate and to host as an organization. But if it's done well, and if you create that community feel through a virtual event, it can still have a really lasting impact for people. This is similar to kind of what's above in terms of, it can really provide a space for your audience to receive that useful information and feel like they're part of a community. And if it's, again, done well, your community will really thank you for that, and it'll really build a nice long-term relationship. And it's a time too, obviously, where you can promote other events and activities as well. So number 5, before we open it up for questions, I said SEO is one of the top strategies. I know it's kind of a buzzword it can be a little bit murky in terms of, or just kind of opaque in terms of what it is and what you can do with it. But essentially, if you see the same Google search that I pulled up there, it's anything that an organization can do to improve its website structure, the coding, and just updating that content, like I said in the previous slide, to play nice with Google and rank higher in the search results. So all of these, the listings on the right here, they have good SEO because they're ranking in the top spots. And there's also ways that you can, you can rank and put your content in those kind of people also ask categories on the search listing as well. And so we work with organizations to build that SEO ranking to make sure that their websites are structured well, that they have the right codes in place, and that they have that kind of updated content to make sure that they are ranking as high as they can on a Google search. And this really drives the most traffic for your site. The Google Ad Grant is great because you put your ad right at the top and it can drive a lot of traffic, but organic, the listings that come below the ads are typically the biggest driver of website traffic and attention to your marketing program, to your programs. If you ever look at Google Analytics, look at your website traffic, I can almost guarantee that organic, that Google is driving the most website traffic to your traffic now. And if you implemented some SEO, you could, improve that or increase that even more as well. So like I said, when it's set up correctly, it can drive hundreds and thousands of new website visitors to your site. So getting into the questions and answers, Gail sent me a few questions before this that were submitted from you guys. And I have a couple of them here and I can provide some answers to. And then there's a couple also that I wanted to just gather a little bit more clarity around to provide a good answer for you. So this first one from Maryland: how do you get your name out outside of the typical mental health community? We need to let those who do not know about children's mental health know that we exist. So very good question. I think that's kind of probably summarizes why a lot of people are on the call. And I'll go back to the one of the points in the 5 strategies, and that being paid media, and being some Facebook ads could potentially really help here. And to get outside of the mental health community or kind of people that you're normally talking to, you can exclude groups from your ads. So you can exclude people who are on your email list, you can exclude people who have visited your website, and other kind of terms that you want to avoid, so that you're reaching people that are not typically in the mental health space as well. And then the second part of this, doing potential OOH, which is out of home ads. That's the things that you see outside, like billboards and bus signs and things like that. Those can be a good way to reach a broader audience as well. And we work with organizations on those kind of strategies as well.
Yeah, Ian, I think if I could just jump in, I think that we as a group, and I'm speaking as a former state executive director, one of the things that really surprises me is we work so hard and everybody knows us in our own little niche. But then if I go to the grocery store and someone comes up to me and says, "Oh, my child has a mental health issue and I don't know where to go," and I said, "Well, have you ever called into my office?" They have no clue what my office was. So how do we get out there in different ways? Any advice?
Well, my expertise is in the digital space, and so to get in front of new audiences, it really will require that kind of ad budget. And you can target, if you're really looking at your local community surrounding your organization, you can target by zip code and make sure that your ads are being seen by people in a certain geography. And then you can do some more kind of general awareness ads that reach people and speak to people that aren't necessarily thinking about mental health, or that's at the top of their mind, just to start that conversation. And then, I mean, the only thing I can kind of speak to in the non-digital world is just from my community organizing days way back when, where you would do those very much like boots on the ground, canvassing or flyering and doing those community events, events that aren't related to your mission necessarily, but are just to get people out, have a good time. And then, you know, you educate them on your mission and, or just the importance of addressing mental health or whatever the mission is.
That's a great idea. I never even thought of that. Thank you.
All right, so second question here from Texas. What would be better ways to advertise Children's Mental Health Acceptance Month? Are there virtual ideas to help with this? So, you know, we all see kind of the social media campaigns around these markers, these awareness months. And if you can develop some kind of social media campaign around that, you know, with some kind of unique hook or unique content, that can be a great way to advertise it. But if you know, those kind of marketing efforts, they take a lot of kind of brain power, creativity, resources to develop something that's really going to kind of stand out from the crowd for those kind of campaigns. So we typically, unless there's a big marketing budget and some really, you know, great ideas out of the gate, we try to do more what's called evergreen campaigns, and those are campaigns that you can run all year round. Doesn't matter if it's a certain month or week, so that you can not only just create something that lasts longer, but you can iterate on it very quickly. So you can do a campaign that just promotes your programs in general. And then if one tactic doesn't work one month, you can change a tactic for the next month, and it'll still be driving that same kind of marketing goal each month. I see a question from Millie. What is the best way to share or raise awareness of policy issues, best platforms, things to avoid? Policy issues as in legislative issues, I take it?
Yes, just the things that would impact the youth and families, you know, that we serve, or the family-run organizations that we support.
It would be a similar tactics. So, I mean, first and foremost, you want to educate your followers, and doing that through an email series, email communications, and on your social media platforms, people who are already know about you. And then you can use it potentially as a way to reach new audiences. If you can position yourself as, you know, one of the thought leaders in that policy space, or an organization that can provide really, you know, top-notch resources for somebody understanding that policy, you can do, you know, an awareness campaign and do something like a PDF download for that. And so you can run some ads that encourage people to educate themselves on a certain policy, and go to your website to download the fact sheet or download some kind of sheet, and kind of start to build that relationship there, educate the person, provide them a valuable piece of information, and then get them on your email list for future communications as well. Is that okay? Yeah, sure thing. And then, so a couple other questions that came in before the webinar that I just wanted a little bit more clarity on to understand and provide the best answer possible. And if you're on the call, please provide that clarity. So this was somebody from Idaho. Are there any hacks that we can use for virtual marketing? So if you're on the call, not trying to call you out, but if you can provide a little bit more detail on what you mean by hacks, I'm happy to provide an answer. And then same for the second question there. So from Arizona, we need to be well known in our community, and we often shortchange how important it is to stay active in community events where we'll meet and engage parents, and need some ideas on how to do that. So if either of you are on the call.
You know, Ian, I think the Idaho question, you may have answered it with the Google.
Sure.
what is it called? This Google Scholarship? Is that what it
For
is?
ad grants.
Ad grant.
And even SEO could be kind of considered a hack for that if you are, because it does involve coding and in that sense. Yeah, and then the second question, I think if they're not on the call, I think we kind of talked about that as well in terms of what those community events can be. Those in-person events are still very important, and no matter how much advancement we make in the digital space and with webinars like this and video conferencing, like the in-person events are still going to be a lot more powerful, or typically more powerful, just kind of as they are organically. So as much as you can do still, the community events, those will pay dividends for long term. Who else from Ohio? Idaho. Yeah, exactly. I don't know why I keep saying Ohio. All right.
Idaho's popular.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's everything that I had. Gail,
I would love it now if people turn on your cameras and take off the mute button and just ask questions of Ian or myself, or even contribute some of the ideas that you might have, because nothing is better than sharing within ourselves. Anybody have any ideas for marketing? Lisa?
Well, I have a question, I guess, for Ian. I'm just wondering if he has any like ideas or thoughts to share on keyword strategies, especially for, we're doing a website redevelopment right now.
Great. Yeah, great question. And so do you have an ad grant as well, or is that related to
No,
the
I was
question?
trying to get the website together first. So
yeah.
I really felt your opening remarks about how your website has to be in place before you
Excellent
marketing strategy.
Yes, indeed. So when we do what's called keyword research, we do use a Google product called Keyword Planner. And Keyword Planner will provide you with data on what people are searching for in Google search every month. And it also gives you some ideas on what those keywords are. So you type into Google Keyword Planner, and I say that tool also, if you apply for the ad grant, you kind of can set up an empty account. You can get access to Keyword Planner for free, and it doesn't cost. And you can type in, a sample keyword like behavioral health or something, and it'll send you it'll give you the monthly volume for that term, how many people are using that term, typing that term into Google each month. And it'll give you more ideas on other keywords to use for your website as well from there. And so that's a good tool. And you can also just use a Google search. When you start typing something in, it'll start to populate or kind of assume what you're typing. So that'll give you a good sense of keywords that people are typing into Google. Google Trends is also another tool that's helpful. It'll tell you when certain keywords are being used throughout the year, and when they're more kind of popular, people are typing those in. And that'll help kind of develop your content strategy for your website. You don't really want to do what's called keyword stuffing, where you just kind of put a bunch of keywords on a page because there's a lot of search volume for that, because Google will it's smarter than that these days, and it'll see that you're just trying to rank at the top of the page. So you want to still make sure your content is very conversational, written in a very readable way, and you're not just like putting a bunch of different bunch of keywords with a lot of search volume at the top and things like that. But it can definitely guide the types of content and what you're actually writing about on your website. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that's some great tips. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Joy has a question.
I do. Hello.
Hi.
So we use monthly or regular newsletters, and that works well enough for now. We've used the same format and templates for quite a number of years, and I'm in the process of kind of changing that up, renovating it, but also trying to balance accessibility. So kind of a two-part question. One, do you have any tips for kind of making that type of strategy more exciting, that monthly newsletter? Or does that how it looks, how it appears in somebody's inbox, whatever that might be, does it even matter that much?
Yeah, great questions. Thank you. So the monthly newsletter is always kind of a tricky thing because it needs to be done, that kind of regular communication. But it's also, people can kind of just gloss over it or not really read everything that's in there if there's too many stories, and if they're subscribed to a lot of different newsletters as well. So you really want to try to find that balance between, understanding that the more stories you put in, the less likely they are to actually click and read through those stories. So if there's something very important, that should only be one story in that newsletter, even if it's typically has a whole template and 4 or 5 stories, you want to really keep it to one story, one call to action if you want the most engagement with that content. And that's kind of to say also that, yes, it's good for internally to have those guidelines. Like we typically do 4 stories and we send it out every first Tuesday of every month or something. That's good internally to kind of keep you in line. But you should certainly feel free to break that when necessary. And like I said, only do 1 story, maybe send it out on a different date as well. If that content is really important, you still want to treat it as something that you really need your readers to read through. Hopefully that answers kind of your first question. Let me know if not. But on the accessibility part of it, the design is important, but it's not as important as just the content and kind of the written word, for lack of a better term, kind of what that story is and what that piece of information is. So you can make it look really nice and fancy, but if it's not really delivering the value, it wouldn't really make that big of a difference if it's designed well. And if you're referring to like accessibility in terms of like screen readers and people's ability to decipher different colors as well, there's nothing wrong. And sometimes even just a plain text email can get a lot of engagement and get people really reading it. You've probably seen some of those just in political campaigns where it's just a plain text email, nothing fancy, no design to it, but it gets read and it gets people to click on it because it's not distracting. And it's also just that content, that story is really there.
That's pretty interesting, Ian.
Yeah, let me know if I didn't answer. Yeah, Joy, thank you.
Lisa has a follow-up question.
I do. I just, on that topic of how to put your newsletters together, new content. So if you're pushing, as you're recommending in your 5 strategies, to push new content all the time, do you see any value in like doing a roll-up, kind of like using the stuff you've already put out in a sort of organizing email in a, that people, or is that just wasting time?
Yeah, well, repurposing content is great, is always a good idea because people aren't going to see it the first time around, and you don't want all the effort that went into building that content to go to waste. Either you want it to be seen. But that said, you want to still, email is such a personal communication. It's not like social media where somebody can just kind of casually scroll through. You want to be just serving up the most valuable content for your audience in that email. And you can kind of get to that from looking at the analytics on your website. Are there stories or events that people are really interested in that they're already going to on your site? And then you could do something like, these are our top blog posts this month, or our top informational resources for you based on people who have been on our site. And so you can do kind of roll up like that, where it can be it can highlight a few different stories, but for a reason, you know, that these are the top stories of the month or something like that.
Thank you,
Thank-
Ian.
Mhm.
Roxanne has a question.
Talked about on a website, you can have a little pop-up where people can provide their email.
Mhm.
How do you do that? Does it cost? And can you talk a little bit more about that? How
Yeah,
to do
sure.
that?
Yeah, definitely. So it's best to use a pop-up tool that's integrated, that comes from your email tool. So if you have like Constant Contact or MailChimp, they should have an option to just enable that pop-up or to create that pop-up, so that, because the biggest thing with those is you want those emails to go straight into your database, so that you can start emailing with them, emailing with those people on your newsletter and things like that. So if your email tool doesn't have that kind of pop-up feature, then there are third-party tools you can use. I think there's one called SumoMe, SUMOME. They have a free version that you can use. It will have their little logo on it, you know. But that's kind of a typical scenario. There's you can look up a lot of different ones and just plug it right onto your website, and you'll just have to pay if you want to remove their branding, or if you want, sometimes they'll let you do A/B testing, which is serving up 2 different pop-ups to see which one performs the best. If there's a certain headline that performs better, that's always good to do with those, so that you get to the best type of messaging to get those to get as many email signups as possible as well.
Now, did you say that is also available on Constant Contact?
Constant Contact has their own version. MailChimp does. If you're even working on a Squarespace or like a Wix website, they probably have plugins that you can add on to your site to create that pop-up. Just the most important thing is to make sure that it's feeding those emails into your email database, so you don't have to like download a list every week and then upload it to your email database and then email them communication. So you just want to make sure that it's integrated.
And Ian, I have a question for you. We talked about newsletters. Do you recommend always having a monthly newsletter, or would it do us well or harm if we went to a quarterly newsletter?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is just that consistent and regular communication. So it can be a newsletter, it can be just a one-off email, but it starts with your audience, you know, what you know about them, or if you've surveyed them, how often they want to hear from you. But it also, I mean, I wouldn't take it, even if you get feedback, like I only want to hear from you once a year. They'll let you know if they don't want to hear from you more often. If you do have the option to give them that, biannual frequency, great. But I wouldn't necessarily, I find it hard, or I would find a hard scenario for an organization to only email like once a quarter. I'd say at least once a month, if not more, if it's that really valuable piece of content.
Yeah, I think you're right. Do we have any other questions for Ian? This is the time to ask.
Thanks, Millie.
Any other questions? Well, the good news is we might be able to get out and give you 10 minutes back of your own time. But let's see what's up for next month. So coming in June for office hours, we have creating an LGBTQ plus environment in the workforce. And we invite all family leaders and executive directors and anyone else who wants to join us for that conversation. It's the 4th week of June, like always, and you can register online on our website. Thank you for coming. I hope that everybody, when you close out of today's event, we go into a survey, so you can fill out the survey, and it's supposed to work. And if it doesn't, you may feel free to email us. But after you finish completing the survey, you will go right in and get your participation certificate. If you have any more questions, feel free to contact Ian here, and we'll be sending this out in an email too as a follow-up. As always, I would like to thank my staff, Lachelle Wade Friedman, and our project principal investigator, Linda Gardner, for being here today. Here's our contact information if you need us. Always feel free to call and email. Well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate you being here, and I'll see you next month. Thank you, Ian.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Bye.